Good morning. I will be going over practice FRQ number 4 on urban sprawl. This is another typical type of FRQ you could possibly see, interpreting a type of graph and making sure that you can describe and discuss some effects of this. So the first part described two causes of urban sprawl. You had to say two causes, right? So you could have talked about transportation and that people have more cars today. Our roads are expanded, they're safe. So you could talk about low gas prices. We have very low gas prices considering other parts of the world. You could have talked about economics. Basically, if you are wanting to come out to a suburban area, land is typically cheaper. The taxes are cheaper. So it's a little bit cheaper to live in the suburbs. Quality of life you could have discussed. Bigger property, cheaper property, bigger yards, better schools. There's typically less crime in suburban areas. So any type of answers like that, you just had to talk about two of them. And then for part B, it said to discuss. So there is a difference between describe and discuss. So obviously, if you're discussing, you're going to be writing a little bit more. So if you're discussing two human health effects with urban sprawl, you would probably want to talk about health problems like with associated with air pollution. You could have talked about, because we are driving more, then there's more air pollution. And so with air pollution, you can have health effects like asthma, heart disease, any type of lung disease. You could have also talked about obesity, because obesity is due to a commuter diet. You're in the car longer commuting, so you're not walking as much, and so you're not getting that exercise. Auto accidents was also something that you could have discussed, because again, if you're in the car more, there are more accidents. You could have also talked about the reduction of disease spread due to population density, because if you are in the suburbs, there's less population density. You could have very easily written about the coronavirus, because here in Union County, there's a lot less outbreak here because we're in the suburbs rather than in Charlotte, where there's more population, higher density. And so you see that disease because it's a dependent factor on population density. Part C was where you were looking at the graph. So if you look down here at this graph, this is, it was asking about describing the relationship between population density and petroleum use. And so obviously as population increases or decreases, then petroleum use will be inversely related to that. So whatever you chose, as one goes up, the other goes down. Talk about an inverted relationship. Then part D was talking about smart growth and describing steps that your city could take to encourage smart growth. And this is to limit that urban sprawl. And so the two steps, you could have talked about any type of mass transit, HOV lanes, bike paths. Also creating types of nature preserves to protect wetlands or agricultural lands, farming. You could have talked about all the mixed development that we're seeing here. You've got houses and businesses all in one type of very condensed development. Also vertical development, going up instead of out. Tax incentives for living in the city. So trying to make city living cheaper so people don't have to go out into the urbanization and all that urban sprawl. You could also try to make school systems better in the city, and try to reduce that air pollution in your cities, so people would want to live in your cities instead of in the suburban areas. E has to do with the highway systems and describing 2 methods to reduce harmful effects on the wildlife populations because of those highways and urban sprawl. So obviously, one of the best ways that we've talked about would be your wildlife corridors. So making tunnels or corridors between your green areas. You could also plan highways around known migration rates. So doing your research and just avoiding those areas where you know that you have migration. Setting, again, land aside to just promote, farming or agriculture, nature preserves, that type of thing. Promote planting of native vegetation. That's always a good one. You always want to promote your native vegetation. Then F, urban sprawl, often results in the loss of agricultural land. So how can we increase food production within urban areas? And that was just one way. And you could have said stuff like gardens, rooftop gardening, vertical farming, hydroponics. We've talked about all of that. Zoning laws to allow for raising livestock, bees, chicken, that kind of thing. One thing I want to mention, that on the rubric it said that if you say green roofs, there are many different ways that you could talk about a green roof, but in this particular case, you'd have to say the green roof for rooftop gardening. So just make sure you're as specific as possible there. And then finally, you can convert areas that are brownfields or landfills into gardens. So you can convert these things. And if you've ever been to Virginia Beach, this is an interesting little tidbit of information. Mount Trashmore is a park, and it was the landfill for Virginia Beach for a very long time, and they literally converted it and built over it, and now it's a beautiful park. So you can convert these landfills to useful spaces and purposes. All right, so that is your FRQ. Next week, you're going to have a lot more practice, and pay attention to when they're going to be due, because I'm going to be assigning 2 on Monday and 2 on Wednesday, and I will be grading them and giving you feedback on them, and then I can see where we still need to grow as far as these FRQs. I will grade your FRQ number 4 now, so take advantage of my comments on Canvas, and just remember that you're going to have to really work hard on these FRQs, because that's basically your test for your APES exam. So I want everybody to really feel confident on these practices and do them and do a good job. I will take any questions you have or clarification. Just let me know. Have a great day. Bye.